On my daughter's 10th birthday, she opened a gift from my mother-in-law, and seconds later she screamed, "Mom." My eyes, I can't see anything. I still hear that scream in my head. My wife rushed her to the hospital while I stood frozen holding the shiny box that smelled faintly of almonds, the same scent we were warned could kill her. I thought nothing could break a family faster than hate, but I was wrong. Sometimes it's love twisted by control that destroys you from the inside. And when my wife came back that night, she didn't come alone. She brought the police. My name is Cale Drayton, and this is the story of how one birthday gift tore my family apart. Before I share my story with you, I'd love to know you're here with me. Drop a simple hi in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. I love to see how far my story can reach. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. If my story moves you, please subscribe to our channel. Your support means more than you think. It reminds people like me that we're not alone in the fight to protect the ones we love. It was supposed to be perfect, the kind of afternoon you record and keep forever. String lights glowed over our backyard and Asheville pastel balloons swayed in the soft wind, and 10 kids ran barefoot through the grass. Mira, my wife, moved like calm gravity between tables, checking the food, keeping everything in order. I was behind the camera trying to capture Ava's laughter. She had just turned 10, a little artist who still believed the world was kind. For her, today was about cake and color. For me, it was about keeping her safe. Ava's nut allergy wasn't mild, it was life-threatening. We'd learned to live by rules: no nuts, no oils, no experiments. I'd printed nut-free signs for the snack table, even checked every brand of frosting twice. I told myself we were ready. When the gate creaked open, Evelyn and Walter arrived late as usual. Evelyn's perfume reached us first, a heady mix of lavender and self-righteousness. Her husband followed quietly, holding the gift they'd brought, a gold-wrapped box with a white ribbon, a handwritten tag that read, "Nature is always best for children." I felt something tighten in my stomach. Mira noticed too, but said nothing. Ava's face lit up when she saw her grandparents. She ran forward and hugged them, her voice bright. I wanted to stop her, but Walter caught my eye and gave a soft nod, the kind that says, "Don't ruin the moment." Evelyn set the box on the table and clapped her hands. "Open it now, sweetheart. Grandma made this herself." I knew better than to argue in front of everyone. I smiled thin and forced as Ava tore into the wrapping. Inside lay a handcrafted natural beauty set, small jars of soap, a tiny bottle of floral oil, a cream-labeled eye balm. Evelyn's pride was visible in every syllable. "All organic, no chemicals," she said. My pulse jumped. Mira glanced at me. I thought about the pediatrician's words, the chart taped to our fridge. No nut extracts, no almond oil, no exceptions. I hesitated just half a second, long enough to let Ava's small fingers dip into the cream. "Try it, honey," Evelyn coaxed. Ava smiled, dabbed a bit beneath each eye, and before I could breathe, she screamed, a raw animal sound that split the air. "Mom." My eyes. I can't see anything. Everything stopped. Kids froze. Parents dropped their cups. Mira sprinted toward her, snatching Ava into her arms. The jar rolled across the grass, leaving a greasy streak on the ground. The smell hit me then, faint, sweet, unmistakable almonds. My hands trembled as I grabbed the emergency kit, but Mira was already yelling for the EpiPen and shouting into her phone for help. I called 911, stumbling over our address. Walter backed away, pale. Evelyn stood there muttering, "It's just a reaction, she'll be fine," as if words could undo what she'd done. Sirens wailed somewhere beyond the trees. I followed the paramedics to the gate, my throat dry as dust. The party emptied around me like a drained dream balloons, collapsing cake untouched. When the ambulance pulled away, I stood alone by the glittering box, that sickly almond scent still clinging to the air. In that silence, guilt settled heavy in my chest. I'd paused for one breath, and it had cost my daughter her sight. Whether this was a mistake or something darker, I didn't yet know. But I swore I'd never hesitate again. Hospitals have a kind of silence that hums. The antiseptic smell burned my nose as I signed form after form, hands shaking so badly the pen left scratches across the paper. Mira was inside with Ava, helping the doctors flush her eyes. From the waiting area, I could still hear faint cries muffled by the door. On her sleeve, I'd seen a shimmer of the cream oily under the fluorescent lights. The scent, almond sharp and sweet, wouldn't leave me. The attending physician came out, his voice steady but firm. The cream had caused a chemical burn to Ava's corneas. The reaction was serious but treatable. She might recover her sight in time if no further complications arose. If she'd gotten here 10 minutes later, he said the damage could have been permanent. His words landed like a sentence. Mira gripped my arm so hard it hurt. I nodded, unable to speak. While Mira stayed with Ava, I sat alone by the vending machines, flipping open my notebook. I wrote everything down: the time she applied the cream, the scream, the call, the smell, the brand name. I needed order proof, a map through the chaos. Then came the memories I'd tried to bury. Evelyn at our old apartment handing Ava a protein smoothie that turned out to contain almond milk. Evelyn saying, "You're too scared of life, Kale." A little exposure builds strength. Mira had argued with her countless times, showed her the doctor's reports, the allergy tests, the emergency protocol. Evelyn always rolled her eyes, claiming she'd raised 2 kids without modern nonsense. She saw caution as weakness, control as virtue. Now those old fights echoed through the sterile hall. I pressed my palms to my face and saw flashes of my own childhood, my mother shouting the same words Evelyn had just used. Pain makes you stronger. I'd believed it once. I knew what it did to a kid. And now I was watching history repeat itself through my daughter's screams. When Mira came out, her scrubs were streaked with tears. "They're keeping her for observation," she said. "The burns aren't deep. She's stable." Relief hit me like water after fire, but it was brief. I asked, "What did the doctor say caused it exactly?" Mira whispered, "Almond oil. It's right there on the label." Back home, while Mira stayed overnight at the hospital, I forced myself to open the discarded gift bag Evelyn had brought. Inside, beneath the shredded gold paper, I found a folded note stained with oil. Add 2 drops, test reaction. Abnormal response. Immunity. My vision tunneled. I snapped a photo and sent it to Mira with trembling hands. My pulse pounded in my ears. I thought about the line between love and cruelty, how thin it really was. Evelyn believed she was helping, just as my mother once believed breaking me would make me whole. Maybe that's the most dangerous kind of harm, the kind that comes from someone who insists it's for your own good. Sitting in the half-dark living room, I heard the distant storm moving in over Asheville. My phone buzzed with Mira's message. "She's sleeping now. We'll know more in the morning." I typed back, "I found something. We need to talk to the police." Then I set the note on the table, the smell of almonds curling up from the paper. That night I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ava's hands reaching out into nothing, her voice cracking with fear. Somewhere deep inside, a thought I'd never dared entertain surfaced with icy clarity. Maybe this wasn't an accident. And if it wasn't, then love, as Evelyn defined it, had just crossed into something criminal. I looked out the window toward the dark horizon and whispered to no one, "I won't let her hurt my daughter again. Not ever." By the time the doctor said Ava was stable enough to sleep through the night, exhaustion had settled into my bones like concrete. Mira stayed at the hospital, curled up in the chair beside our daughter's bed. I drove home alone through streets blurred with rain headlights stretching like ghosts across the wet asphalt. The house was still lit when I pulled into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Evelyn sitting in the living room, upright, serene, sipping tea as if the day hadn't happened. Walter stood at the kitchen sink, shoulders bent, head lowered. The moment I stepped in, Evelyn looked up, her voice calm and clipped. "How's my granddaughter?" The way she said, "my," made my stomach twist. "Alive," I said, shutting the door behind me. "Barely." She raised an eyebrow. "Don't be dramatic. Kids recover fast." I stared at the mug in her hands. Steam rose in lazy curls the same way her confidence always did, slow, deliberate, impossible to stop. I asked what she'd put in the cream. "Natural oils," she answered, tone sharp as a needle. "Nature is meant to heal, Kyle. You people live in fear." I laid the photo of her handwritten note on the table, the words, "Add 2 drops, test reaction," glistening in the lamplight. "What is this?" I asked. Her eyes flicked toward it, then back at me. "You wouldn't understand. You're part of a generation that panics over everything." Walter stepped forward, voice trembling. "Evelyn, enough." She ignored him. "You and Mira are raising that child to be fragile. The world isn't sterile, Kyle. A little adversity never killed anyone." I clenched my fists until the nails bit my palms. "You nearly blinded her." Evelyn smirked. "You're too soft to raise a strong girl." The words hit me like something physical. I wanted to scream, to throw the mug she held to make her see the damage she'd done, but I remembered Ava's voice trembling and blind and knew shouting wouldn't change anything. My phone buzzed. Mira's message flashed across the screen. "Kyle, it's time." I called Detective Reyes. I looked at Evelyn, who sat there smug and certain, then at Walter, whose eyes were full of defeat. "They're on their way," I said quietly. She didn't react, just took another sip of tea. "You called the police on family?" she asked, not angry, almost amused. "Yes," I said, "on someone who nearly killed my child." I moved through the kitchen methodically. I placed the jar of cream in a zip bag, sealed it, labeled the time, filmed the table, the scattered wrapping paper, even the crumbs on the counter. The house that had been filled with laughter hours ago now felt like a crime scene. Walter came to my side, his hand trembling on my shoulder. "I'll cooperate," he said, voice raw. I told her to stop. She wouldn't listen. I knotted my throat tight. When Detective Reyes arrived, the red-blue pulse of his cruiser washed through the curtains. He was calm, professional, his notebook open, his questions steady. I explained everything. The allergy, the warning signs, the hospital diagnosis, the note. I gave him the photos I'd taken. He bagged the evidence carefully, then looked at me. "Mr. Drayden, I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't the first complaint involving your mother-in-law. There were similar reports in Winston-Salem 2 years ago, children harmed by homemade oils. None of them pressed charges. Maybe now someone finally will." The words hollowed me out. "You're saying this isn't new?" He shook his head. "Not new at all." Walter turned pale. "She told me it was harmless experiments," he whispered. "I didn't know she'd done this before." Evelyn didn't look at him. She just stared at the window as if watching something none of us could see. After Reyes left, silence fell hard. I gathered a few clothes for Mira, and Ava folded them neatly into a duffel. The birthday lights outside still swayed in the wind, their bulbs dimming one by one. I locked the door behind me and whispered to the empty house. "If justice has to walk through my front door, then let it. I choose my daughter." Rain came again that night, soft and cold, dripping from the eaves like a ticking clock. I hadn't slept when the sound came, 3 deliberate knocks on the front door. Through the glass, blue and red lights flickered against the wet street. Evelyn sat where I'd left her, still in that purple dress from the party, a porcelain figure with a cup of cold tea. Walter was beside her, head bowed, eyes hollow. I opened the door. Detective Reyes stood under the porch light, water glistening on his jacket. "Mr. Drayden," he said, "we have a warrant to collect additional evidence and bring Mrs. Hartwell in for questioning." Evelyn didn't flinch. "Questioning," she repeated as if tasting the word. "For what? Loving my family too much?" Reyes ignored her tone. "Ma'am, please stand." She laughed softly. "You people are unbelievable. I raised Mira with these hands, and now she sends the police to arrest her own mother." Mira appeared in the doorway behind him, soaked to the skin, her hair plastered to her face. Her voice was quiet but sharp. "You almost killed my daughter." Something shifted in the air. Evelyn's eyes darted between us, searching for someone to take her side. I stayed silent. Anything I said would only be another wound. Walter whispered, "Evelyn, you need a lawyer." She turned to him, voice dripping with disdain. "I need my family to stop betraying me." Reyes motioned for his partner to collect the items I'd prepared. They photographed the kitchen, the table, the notes. The click of the camera echoed through the house like distant thunder. Evelyn stood, straightened her dress, and faced me. You think this will make you a hero? You think locking me up fixes what's wrong with this world? I said nothing. Walter's hands shook as he reached for her. Please, Evelyn, he whispered. She pulled away. You'll see. She'll thank me one day. They escorted her out in silence. Rain splashed across the steps as she walked to the cruiser. I watched her climb inside, her reflection fractured in the wet glass. For a moment I almost pitied her. The certainty that had ruled her entire life was finally turning on her. But then I saw Ava's frightened face in my mind, and the pity vanished. Reyes lingered after the car pulled away. His voice dropped low. Cale, there's something you should know. We found 2 prior incident reports in Winston-Salem chemical burns from similar mixtures. Both trace back to a wellness group your mother-in-law belonged to. She's not new to this. The words cut through the rain like steel. Walter closed his eyes, his breath shuddering. I thought she was just obsessed with healing, he said quietly. I didn't know she'd been warned before. Reyes nodded, then left his car, disappearing into the storm. Inside, the house felt emptier than it had ever been. I gathered the scattered papers on the coffee table, wiped away a drop of rain that had landed on the photo of Ava smiling at her party. As I bent to pick up a fallen cushion, something white caught my eye under the chair where Evelyn had been sitting. A sealed envelope written in looping purple ink, for Mira, when she's ready to forgive. I stared at it, unsure whether to open it or burn it. My gut told me whatever was inside would only deepen the wound. I slid it into the drawer by the sink, shut it gently, and stood there for a long time. The clock ticked. The rain eased. Walter moved to the doorway, his voice barely above a whisper. Kyle, I don't know how to fix this. I poured a glass of water, took a sip that tasted of metal and regret. Maybe we don't fix it, I said. Maybe we just stop pretending it's not broken. He nodded once and left for the guest room. When the lights went out, I sat alone in the kitchen, the house humming with the quiet of things that can't be undone. I thought about the word family and how easily it can turn from comfort to cage. I thought about my mother, about Evelyn, about how both believed love meant control, and for the first time in my life I felt afraid not of losing them, but of how much of them still lived in me. The clock struck 2. I whispered into the dark, "We can't go back. Not now. Not ever." A week after the arrest, the house still smelled faintly of disinfectant and rain. Mira refused to talk about her mother, focusing all her energy on Ava's recovery. I told her Detective Reyes wanted me at the station for a follow-up interview. She nodded without looking up. "Go," she said. "I'll stay with her." Her voice had that brittle calm of someone holding herself together with sheer will. The police station in Asheville was nothing like the movies, no buzzing drama, just fluorescent lights that made every face look tired. Reyes led me into a narrow room where a recorder blinked red on the table. He opened a file and slid a printed document toward me. "We pulled this from your mother-in-law's tablet," he said. "She kept a log she called Natural Immunity Journal. You might want to read it." The entries ran for months, clinical, detached, horrifyingly methodical. April 12th. Mild rash around the mouth. Good. Continue increasing exposure. May Sue. Subject tolerates trace oils on skin. Adjust ratio. I read line after line, my stomach twisting tighter. Every note referred to the child or subject, but I knew exactly who it was. Ava. My daughter reduced to data points in an experiment Evelyn had convinced herself was love. Reyes watched me in silence. "Did you have any idea this was happening?" he asked. I shook my head. "She visited often." I said, my throat dry. "We tried to trust her." "I believe you," he said quietly. "But you should see this." He clicked on a video file. The image flickered to life, our backyard, 2 months before the party. Evelyn sat on the patio handing Ava a cookie. "Just a taste," her voice said. Behind the camera, Walter laughed softly as if filming a family moment. Ava hesitated, then took a bite. The frame cut off when Mira's voice called from inside. The clip ended there, the silence that followed heavier than any scream. Reyes paused the video. That recording was on Walter's phone, he said. He turned it over voluntarily. He says he thought it was harmless. You believe that I rubbed my forehead unsure. Walter had always been the peacekeeper, too kind for confrontation. Maybe his kindness had made him blind. Then Reyes opened another folder. Printed emails, all from Evelyn's account, addressed to a group called Nature Heals Circle. My eyes caught phrases like, reject pharmaceutical lies, and children build immunity through resistance. Reyes said, they've been on our radar. Some of their members caused injuries to minors. She's one of their key contributors. The room tilted slightly. So this wasn't just her, I whispered. It's an ideology. A dangerous one, he said. And she truly believed she was helping. When I got home, Mira was at the kitchen table, her laptop open. She didn't look up. Reyes sent me something, she said. I walked closer and saw the email on her screen. It was from Evelyn to an old friend. If Mira refuses to listen, I'll show her the truth myself. She'll understand once I prove I was right. Mira's hands trembled as she scrolled. She planned it, Kale. She planned to use our child to make her point. I told her about the video, the journal, the group. She pressed her palms to her face and whispered, then there's nothing left to save. I didn't know if she meant her mother or the family as a whole. That night, the lights from passing cars slid across the window like brief ghosts. I sat there thinking about all the ways people can destroy one another while believing they're saving them. There was no word big enough for that kind of madness, no forgiveness strong enough to survive it. I looked at Mira asleep beside Ava's bed and said softly to the dark, there's no cure for trust once it's gone. The courthouse smelled of paper and cold air. Winston-Salem County wasn't far, but the drive felt endless. I sat beside Mira on the hard wooden bench. Her hand was in mine, cold but steady. Walter sat behind us, thinner than I'd ever seen him. Evelyn was led in wearing a gray cardigan, her hair pulled tight, her eyes sharp and defiant. When the proceedings began, the prosecutor stood and laid out the evidence: Evelyn's journal, the emails, the laboratory report confirming almond oil in the cream. He spoke with a precision that left no room for sentiment. The defendant knowingly exposed a child to a substance she was medically warned could cause harm, he said. This was not negligence. It was intent disguised as care. Evelyn's lawyer objected, arguing emotional instability, but Evelyn herself interrupted. I was trying to help my granddaughter, she said, her voice clear. Modern medicine poisons children. I wanted her strong. The judge asked her to remain silent. Then the video played the footage from our backyard. Walter's voice was audible in the background, faint but undeniable. The prosecutor turned toward him. You filmed this? Walter nodded, tears streaking down his face. I didn't know she'd keep pushing. I thought... He trailed off. Evelyn glanced back at him, disgust curling her mouth. Coward, she muttered. Next, Evelyn's defense tried to present an email showing Mira's supposed consent for gentle, natural exposure. For a moment, my heart stopped until Reyes stepped forward and handed over a forensics report. The email was fake, created from Evelyn's home IP address. The courtroom buzzed with low murmurs. Mira covered her mouth, shaking her head. Evelyn's mask cracked for the first time. She looked down at her hands, silent. Dr. Harlow, the pediatric specialist, took the stand. This is not an isolated incident, he testified. 3 months before, we treated another child for similar burns. The woman who brought her in identified herself as Evelyn Hartwell. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the room. Walter stared at his lap, whispering something like a prayer. Finally, the prosecutor introduced the envelope. I'd found the one labeled, for Mira, when she's ready to forgive. The judge opened it, unfolded the letter, and began to read aloud. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate. If anyone must take responsibility, let it be me. I only wanted to prove that a mother's instincts are never wrong. The room went still. For once, Evelyn said nothing. Her head bowed, her hands clenched together, as if even she could no longer believe her own words. When it was my turn to testify, I told the court what I'd seen, what I'd smelled, the almonds, the panic, the way my daughter screamed for light that wasn't there. My voice broke halfway through. Mira wept quietly beside me. I turned toward Evelyn. "You said pain makes you strong," I told her. "She's strong now, but not because of you. Because her mother ran fast enough to save her." Evelyn's eyes glistened, but she didn't respond. By the time the judge adjourned, everyone looked drained, like the air itself had been emptied of oxygen. He announced that sentencing would be delayed pending review of the psychiatric evaluation and the evidence of prior harm. It wasn't victory. It was limbo. Outside the courthouse, Walter waited under the stone steps. His voice was hoarse. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow," he said. "I can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved." His words sounded less like anger and more like mourning. Mira and I walked toward the parking lot in silence. The sky was pale, washed clean by last night's rain. I reached for her hand and she didn't pull away. For the first time in weeks, that felt like enough. As we drove away, the courthouse shrank in the rearview mirror, but the weight of it stayed with me. It wasn't just a legal battle anymore, it was a reckoning with the idea that love could justify harm. Some truths didn't end with a gavel. Some lingered quietly, reshaping the people who survived them. That night when I tucked Ava into bed, she asked if Grandma was still mad. I brushed her hair back and said, "No, sweetheart. Grandma's just lost." She nodded, her eyes half closed. "Then maybe someone should find her." I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Maybe, but not us." And as the house finally fell silent, I realized what this fight had truly been about. Not just justice, not punishment, but breaking the cycle. The kind of love that hurts in the name of healing had ruled too many lives. It ended here. The morning of the sentencing felt like the world had stopped to hold its breath. The sky hung low over Winston-Salem, heavy with rain. Thunder rolled somewhere in the distance as Mira and I walked up the courthouse steps beside Walter. None of us spoke. We had said everything there was to say in the quiet hours before dawn. Inside, the air was cold and sterile, the hum of the overhead lights cutting through the silence. Evelyn sat at the defense table, pale and rigid, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The confidence that once radiated from her had faded into something brittle, almost hollow. When the judge entered the room, fell completely still. The prosecutor began by reviewing the evidence, the journals, the emails, the videos, the analysis of the cream, and the letters exchanged with the Nature Heal Circle. Each piece of paper landed like a small hammer, nailing down a truth we had all been trying to deny. Evelyn's attorney stood next, asking for leniency on the grounds of psychological instability, calling her a mother trapped by her own trauma. But the prosecutor's rebuttal was sharp, unflinching. This was not madness, he said. It was pride masquerading as love. Then Mira was called to the stand. She walked up slowly, her posture straight, her voice steady, even as her hands trembled. "I've forgiven my mother more times than I can count," she said. "But forgiveness isn't a shield for harm. I just want my daughter alive. That's all." Her words echoed through the courtroom. Evelyn looked at her eyes, glassy, lips tight. When it was my turn, I took the stand and felt the weight of every eye in the room. I told them about the birthday party, about the scream that tore through the air, about the way the world tilted in that moment. I believed family meant safety, I said, but now I know it can also be the place where danger hides behind love. My voice cracked on the last word. Evelyn didn't look away. Just as the prosecutor began his closing statement, Evelyn suddenly stood. Her voice sliced through the room. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said. "If Ava weren't so weak, this wouldn't have happened." Gasps broke out. The judge struck his gavel, calling for order, but she went on her words, trembling. "You don't understand. I lost a child once. She died from those poisonous drugs the doctors gave her. I couldn't let that happen again." The room fell silent. The truth hit like lightning through the storm. Walter's face crumpled. Mira's sob tore the air apart. Evelyn's voice faltered, then small for the first time. "I was just trying to stop history from repeating." Walter rose from his seat. "It did repeat," he said, his voice breaking. Because you let your fear become your weapon. His confession filled the space between us like a verdict of its own. The judge's tone softened, but his words were clear. Fear cannot excuse what was done. We all suffer loss, but no one has the right to cause another. He paused, then read the sentence: 3 years in state prison for reckless endangerment of a minor and full restitution of Ava's medical care. Evelyn closed her eyes, her shoulders sinking. As the deputies moved to escort her out, she turned once more toward me. I only wanted her strong, she whispered. I met her gaze and said quietly, she will be. Just not your way. Rain drummed against the courthouse windows as we walked out. Mira gripped my hand, her fingers cold but firm. Walter stood at the base of the steps without an umbrella, letting the rain soak through his coat. I looked at him, unsure if there was anything left to say. He just nodded, eyes red and distant. The storm thickened, gray sheets falling across the city. For the first time in months, I felt something shift inside me, a strange lightness buried under the ache. Justice had come late, but sure, like the storm breaking after too many dry days. As we walked away, I whispered to myself, it's over now. Or maybe it's finally begun. 6 months later, the rain had given way to spring. Our new house in Brevard sat near a lake where the water shimmered under morning sun. No alarms, no cameras, no echoes of the courtroom, just wind moving through the grass and the soft sound of Ava's laughter as she painted on the porch. Her eyesight had almost completely healed. She wore glasses, now thick and pink, and said they made her look like a scientist. Mira smiled every time she said that. I'd gone back to work designing games again while Mira returned to her nursing shifts. Life moved slower here. Walter visited every few weeks, always with a small bouquet or a jar of homemade jam. He no longer wore his wedding ring, but he carried an old photo in his wallet, 2 little girls in matching dresses, one of them Mira, the other, the daughter Evelyn had lost so many years ago. He never spoke of the divorce, but grief lingered around him like a quiet shadow. Mira and I began couples therapy, not because we were broken, but because we didn't want to be. In one session I said, no one's immune to fear, but we get to choose whether we let it steer our lives. Mira nodded, tears shining in her eyes. And I'm done letting it drive mine. For the first time, I believed her. One afternoon while cleaning, Ava pulled open a drawer and found the sealed envelope I'd hidden months before the one addressed to Mira. She ran to us, waving it like treasure. Mom, Dad, look what I found. We sat together on the porch and opened it. Inside was a short letter written in Evelyn's careful script. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I didn't know how to love any other way. Please teach Ava what I never learned. Mira read it twice before folding it back up. I can't forgive her, she said quietly. But I can stop hating her. That evening, Ava showed us a new drawing. The sky was gray with a single bright streak cutting through the clouds. Beneath it, she'd written, "This is me. I can see now." I looked at the picture and felt something unclench inside me. Healing didn't announce itself. It arrived softly in moments like that. When Ava's next birthday came, we kept it simple. No balloons, no big crowd. Just the 3 of us and Walter. The cake was small vanilla with sugar icing, safe, plain, perfect. Ava closed her eyes to make a wish, and before blowing out the candles, Mira leaned close and said, "Remember, sweetheart, being strong doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you're scared and love anyway." Ava grinned, then sent the flames flickering out. I closed my eyes too, just for a moment, and let the sound of their laughter fill the room. The world had cracked open once, but somehow we'd found light inside the break. Later that night, after Ava was asleep, I stood by the window watching moonlight ripple across the lake. I used to think justice was a verdict, I whispered. But it's not. It's when the truth no longer has to hide. I thought about Evelyn then, not with anger, not even pity, just understanding. She'd started the storm, but we'd learned how to live after it. Behind me, Mira's voice floated from the hallway. "Kale, come to bed." I turned off the light and looked once more at the moon's reflection before answering, "Coming." As the house fell quiet, I realized something simple and certain: love isn't the absence of fear, it's what remains after the fear has passed. And in that peace, the light finally came back to stay. Sometimes the hardest storms aren't the ones that flood our streets, they're the ones that drown our hearts. This story isn't just about a courtroom or a verdict, it's about fear, love, and the dangerous line between them. It's about how people can lose themselves in the name of care, and how healing begins the moment we stop calling harm by softer names. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back in. Sometimes it just means letting yourself breathe again. And strength, it isn't born from pain. It's born from surviving it, and still choosing to love. If this story touched something in you, please take a moment to share your thoughts below. Maybe you've faced your own kind of storm, one that changed the way you see love, family, or trust. Tell me where you're listening from, or simply say, "I'm here." Knowing you're there means more than you can imagine. And if you want to walk through more stories like this about resilience, redemption, and finding light after the dark, please subscribe to the channel. Every voice, every comment, every listener helps remind someone out there that even when everything seems broken, there's still a way back to peace. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for believing that light always returns.